Hey YouTube, welcome back to the world of science fiction. Before we get into today's episode though, I want to ask to see if you're subscribed down below really quickly. It's free and it helps us out a lot and it lets you know when we upload new stuff. So, without further ado. The other humans and I watched as the squashy accordion people and their planet turned into greasy smoke, erased from all existence. Cam felt horror. But next to them, Young was still laughing. His high-pitched little gasps had grown hysterical by this point.
That's it?
Young tittered.
The final test to the universe? That's easy.
Atone for your failure in oblivion.
Something thundered as the last of the accordion people perished. Some horrible, omnipresent consciousness loomed. Cam felt it nearby. They could tell that the voice came from everywhere and nowhere. Something breathed down the neck of their mind. Cam shuddered and looked around the endless plain. Fewer clusters, fewer peoples, and their worlds populated the expanse than before the test. Not even a stain marked where each annihilated species had stood before their smiting. One moment, Cam had been at work. The next, here. A test was being announced, and weird aliens they hadn't even known existed began smoking and dying. All at the whim of whatever terrible thing had brought them here. The test was ridiculous, too. Even in their state of post-apocalyptic bafflement, the humans could tell that much.
All peoples who have tried to escape this galaxy have sinned.
The everywhere thing boomed inside the mind of each consciousness present.
You have failed me!
Squeals and shrieks filled the timeless place. Young laughed hysterically, and Cam did their best to ignore him. Around them, every other human who had ever lived crowded the platform that was also the Earth. They mumbled in a great chorus that Cam found easy to block out. Space and geometry didn't quite make sense here, in this meta place. But the dimensionality was interesting, Cam thought. It was as if all the billions and billions of entities that had populated the Milky Way galaxy had all joined together in this single, impossible, multi-layered waiting room of eternity.
I ask, though I know, who else among you has writhed, discontented by our beloved galaxy as if it were a prison? Who among you has tried to leave?
Cam couldn't believe their eyes, but a dozen or so species were giving themselves up. An amoebic race sloshed and slid forward, and something that looked like a collection of pipes glued together wailed, lamenting its people's fate. No mercy, apparently, would be shown. Cam noticed the first already searing. Something shapeless made of yarn, in reality an advanced culture which controlled 2-star systems, burst into flame. Cam sniffed, almost able to smell the smiting.
You users of the warp drive, the slipstream space, the generation colony, you have sinned. Take what you deserve.
A race of crocodilians were popping and smoking like firecrackers. Focusing on them, the dimensions helpfully bending across the subjective light years, Cam sadly conceded that they were kind of cute, in a reptilian way.
This is nuts, mate,
Young whispered to Cam, nudging them with his elbow.
Didn't believe that aliens were real, did you?
Grateful, righteous peoples who have created beauty and balance need fear nothing. My compassion is as infinite as my wrath. Alas, the wicked multitude who have writhed, killed, and enslaved have naught but pain and oblivion to look forward to.
Sins? Tests? Things were slowly starting to make sense, in an insane sort of way. For the first time, the sensory overload ebbed for a moment. Enough for Cam to try to piece together the last scraps of memory from their life. Fleetingly, they remembered the apocalypse. It was like any other of Cam's workdays, which meant they barely registered the earth-shaking tremors as the world itself came apart. Young and Cam manned an excavator, digging up nearly useless grit in the middle of nowhere. Sand mining is loud, shaky, and dusty work, and as such, the pair could be forgiven for not noticing the end of the galaxy until the last moment. Elsewhere, cities crumbled and oceans steamed. Inside the cab of the excavator, Cam methodically manipulated a series of complicated levers. Young chewed tobacco and hummed tunelessly. Everything seemed normal. Boring, even. Until a sudden lurch, and the pair were thrown against the instrument panel. Cam banged their knee, and Young ejected a spray of evil-colored juice that coated the cab's interior window.
Damn it!
Cam cursed, anxious that they'd somehow sheared a gear or that the hardpack beneath had given way. If they could see outside, they'd have rubbed their eyes and stared dumbfounded as the substance of the vast desert disappeared into the sky. First, the lightest grains broke free from gravity, floating upward and flowing in a river toward an impossibly distant zenith, as if some great vacuum had turned on. Next, the hapless humans could have seen their mining buildings fold and collapse. But before that, the sunlight itself would be stolen. Out beyond the dripping glass, the first of Cam and Young's doomed coworkers started tumbling to the bedrock and convulsing, desperately trying to breathe an atmosphere that had already been hoovered away. By the time the doors of the excavator ripped open and sailed away, reality itself had begun to come apart. The very bonds that held the Earth's subatomic particles together were giving up their ghosts, falling asleep on the job. Rather than contemplate the physics of it all, Young flew off into the sky. The last of Cam's air was sucked from his lungs, and a blissful blackness permeated all. They lost consciousness just a few minutes too early to witness the Milky Way galaxy's last constituent quarks sputtering away. The next thing Cam remembered, they and Young were still on the job site, but also somehow standing on an endless field of white. Surrounding them were a few billion other humans, and simultaneously adjacent there stretched a spaceless kaleidoscope of other worlds.
You who have played with the energy of the void, you have failed the test, and thus your kind are cut off from existence.
Cam had zoned out for a moment, but they blinked twice and easily located one of the species being reprimanded. At first, they thought it was a field of fleshy, colorful flowers, but once the screaming started, Cam noticed they had mouths.
Be gone, and die in an agony yet too good for the likes of you. 0-point energy is forbidden, and none shall touch the sacred fabric.
Lord, God have mercy!
One of the flower people cried out. Others joined in the chorus.
We atone! We atone, oh Lord God!
I can understand them, Cam muttered, only mildly surprised. Young just giggled.
Oh God, please, no!
God?
The overbearing, omnipresent thing almost laughed.
I am not God, fools. All who hear this, the righteous and wicked alike, divorce any notion of gods from your puny minds.
Did you create us?
Young asked suddenly, looking up at nothing.
In a manner of speaking.
What does that mean?
Young cocked his head.
Yes.
Well, that makes you God, then.
Young countered. Cam shook their head. They couldn't believe this conversation was taking place.
I am not God. I am the one who tests. I am the one who seeds the stars of the galaxy. I am the one who harvests. I alone separate the grain from the chaff, the wicked from the righteous.
Do you know God?
No.
Can I call you God?
No. I am arbiter of the void and guiding spark of the galaxy that you call the Milky Way.
How about the milkman, then?
If that helps.
The flower people had long since burned to colorless ash, but other curious voices joined in. A trillion questions asked from a million, billion throats, beaks, breakers, and drums.
Bring it back!
An aquatic thing demanded.
Restore us to our world!
Oh, great milkman, why? Tell us why?
An energy being pleaded.
Where is it? Where is Zahara?
The aquatic creature, a sort of bipedal ray, asked. Several of its followers had flopped to the fore, screaming louder than anyone else.
Restore us to our world! Divorce your minds from the past and forget your worlds. Your worlds are mere incubators and are gone. All have been erased, and none shall be restored.
The wails of the aquatic petitioner grew incoherent.
I ask, though I know, against how many statutes have you who remain been tested?
3?
Guessed Young.
2!
Shouted a man with long braids of hair and a wrinkled face. Cam looked over their shoulder at the folded dimensions, noticing the man spoke from thousands of miles away. Yet he also seemed to be standing only a few meters back.
Indeed. Statute the first. None shall leave the Milky Way. None shall try.
The milkman boomed inside the mind of every sentient being.
Statute the second. The energy of the void is forbidden, and none shall toy with the fabric that dances at the base of all realities.
Cam tried to keep up, but ended up being confused by some of the milkman's words. Wherever the dancing fabric at the base of reality is, Cam figured, they were pretty sure human physics hadn't drilled down that far yet.
Millions of my seeds have sprouted. Thousands have already failed the test. Thousands more shall be tested.
The aquatic ray creatures fell to their equivalent of knees. Cam glanced 2 continents away, seeing plenty of humans doing the same thing. Beside them, Young was laughing with his eyes closed. To the tobacco-chewing sand miner, this whole production seemed hilarious.
What's that 3rd test, then?
Young asked casually, not noticing a billion biological apertures around the galaxy tightening with stress.
Statute the third. As decreed by I, the milkman. I am the one who tests.
The entity screamed, its everywhere voice rising in pitch.
Time is my domain, and those wicked multitude who seek to swim through time and move about free and unclouded by conscience, they have sinned.
So...
Young replied, squinting.
No time travel?
Yes.
Young laughed, a huge, confident cackle.
Oh, well, that's easy. We pass.
However, for a planet of mecha-humanoids, 2 ocean worlds, and a giant face that seemed to be composed of millions of swarming flies, the test wasn't so easy. Cam couldn't laugh along with their colleagues as entire cultures and civilizations went up in smoke, melting and sublimating to their doom. The infinite metaspace clamored with alien shrieks, lamentations, and too late apologies.
What's that?
Young asked, leaning over Cam's shoulder, pointing across folded dimensions. Some kind of starfish, I think. Cam answered, watching, fascinated, as the milkman invisibly pulled each of the creatures, limb from limb, from limb, from limb.
Sinners! Failures!
Shaking the image from their mind, Cam began walking toward nowhere, just to feel some movement. Before they'd taken too many dimensionless steps, they joined a clot of other humans on the plain, the elderly man with the braided hair among the crowd. Young, upon finding himself alone, slid over to join. Some acknowledged the newcomers with nods.
Hi,
a short, smiling woman said, giving them a wave. Hello, Cam said, pointing with their thumb. Cam, Young. The old man stepped up. My name is... Before he could finish, the airless light rippled, and the milkman's thundering voice crescendoed, drowning out all conversation and most thoughts.
Statute the fourth,
the milkman cried,
against which you shall be tested. It is wicked and sinful to bend the mind and will of another people to your own ends.
Slavery?
Oh, crap. Cam winced. We're doomed. The old man next to them sunk his chin to his chest and shook his head sadly. The infinite space hanging above the plane crackled, filling with a terrible electric sea. Cam's hair stood on end. Young's balding scalp bristled. An overpowering white light flashed. In an instant, a web-like sheet of lightning descended over a population of smooth-skinned quadrupeds and their large, dusty world. The spectacle was difficult to look at, but Cam saw that whenever a tendril from the energy web arced out and touched a living thing, the doomed creature would twitch before melting into a puddle of black, bubbling goo.
The arrogance!
The milkman shouted, smiting at will.
Now it is your freedom that is revoked! Now it is your future that is stolen from you!
The quadrupeds leapt from their world and raced swiftly in every direction, desperately trying to scatter themselves across the dimensionless space. As they did, however, the lightning net only expanded, binding and liquefying even the most heroic of the four-legged cowards. Oi, look. Young nudged Cam's elbow. Indeed, countless other races and civilizations were tasting the milkman's wrath. If one cared to locate them, similar nets of crackling, luminous meta-lightning descended on world after world. All of them, apparently, societies of slavers. A world populated by intelligent serrated disks melted into black gook, and a planet of clam-like people sat stock still and took their punishment, neither having the physiology nor the psychology to attempt to escape.
I ask, though I know, how does it feel to be bound?
The milkman's terrible chains of tangled energy spread out, covering a lush green world before drawing up like a purse to enfold the entire planet in searing, sparking death.
You wicked, believed yourselves free to dominate the worlds of others.
The omnipresent entity shrieked into the minds of all assembled.
You believed wrongly. You have been tested, and you have failed. We're next, we're next, we're next, we're next.
The long-haired elder next to Cam kept muttering, but as far as any of the other humans could tell, the milkman had yet to include them in the general smiting.
I don't get it, mate.
Young said to his coworker.
Humans are slavers, aren't we? My own ancestors can attest to that.
Cam chewed their lower lip. We haven't enslaved an entire planet, though. Young laughed.
Okay, we just haven't gotten the chance yet, is all.
The bar seems really low. Cam agreed, watching a vast empire of spun glass sentience writhe and melt.
Statute the Fifth,
the milkman announced without preamble, thundering even as the final wisps of smoke drifted up from the spitton.
It is forbidden to destroy one's own world by the laws of the natural galaxy and the strictures of common sense. Only the most foolish and the most wicked have sinned thusly.
In the clot of humanity, the old man began to weep.
From whence came your homes? I ask, though I know. You have been given one world. I, the milkman, seeder of the stars, the one who tests. I have selected from amongst the finest realms in the galaxy a home for each and every one of my seeds.
The milkman explained.
Woe be upon those who have spit in the face of this gift. Woe be upon those sinners who have ruined their planet.
An unusual species, one seemingly confined to the many thousands of large, ugly spaceships, were the first to fall. An invisible hand swatted the massive machines like flies, crushing and smashing the fleet of the wordless. Most of the humans watching alongside the sand miners seemed overcome by the wonder of the spectacle. The weeping elder, however, wailed once again and began to walk forward. At first he stood amongst the crowd, but the next second he was thousands of miles away. Cam watched him move from the coast of the Pacific to the center of the featureless meta-plane in a single step, When he came to rest, the old man again hung his head, hiding part of his face in a curtain of braided gray hair.
I confess, I atone.
He choked out between sobs.
We have destroyed our world. Man, he's wicked. Wicked, wicked, rotten.
That dude's selling out humanity.
Young hissed under his breath. The invisible, omnipresent milkman finished smiting a race of big-eyed, hard-shelled black hole farmers before answering the sad old human's confession.
Your words are empty air, human,
the milkman declared. Cam heard the lambast echo in their brain. They glanced over and they saw Yong wincing. He heard it too. Cam wondered how many conversations they weren't privy to, here in the confusing, sprawling, nearly infinite Meadowlands.
We've destroyed the homeostasis of our world.
The elderly human wailed.
We have slaughtered other species, poisoned the air and the water, and we humans are the only cause of the hastening of Earth's fall to ruin.
Yong shook his head.
I can't believe this BS.
Silence!
The entity thundered, making the humans clench their hands to their heads and cover their ears, though no sound waves were employed.
But, Milkman, you speak untruths. You believe you have destroyed your world? Behold!
Somehow, the dimensions of the metaplane bent, refracting light and putting an unsightly planet and its people front and center for the whole galaxy to observe.
These are the key of the planet key. Let them serve as an example to the ignorant.
Cam studied the magnified topography of the world called Key, noting the ruined cities, river of toxins, and utter lack of anything that could be mistaken for a plant or animal. Now that's one ruined planet, they said after a dying whistle.
Oath,
Young agreed.
Only the irredeemable seek to destroy their own habitat.
The milkman spoke, and the blackened planet Key began to shudder.
Be destroyed in turn, in rest and ignominy.
Like a great zipper opening across its equator, the ruined planet opened like a mouth and began devouring the Key. In their ships and stations they scattered, launching and flying, but moving nowhere. Before long, none remained. The planet gave out a great gaseous belch, and then Key, along with the memory of its people, folded up upon itself and disappeared into its own nothingness.
I guess we're forgiven for the Great Barrier Reef?
Cam asked their coworker facetiously.
And the dodos. And the ozone layer.
easiest tests ever.
Young made a rude motion with his hand. The quiet woman from earlier let out a laugh, soft and nervous, apparently eavesdropping on the sand miners.
You're funny,
she said, shyly. Young looked over at her and raised an eyebrow.
I don't understand.
The long-haired human was busy weeping and hiccuping.
We won't destroy Earth? We did it destroy the Earth? Weep not, puny human,
the milkman thundered. If the omnipresent entity had intended to soften its tone, it failed.
Yours is a planet of beauty, and yours is a people of artists. I ask, though I know, how many statutes have been declared?
5.
I interrupt myself at the 5th statute to show to all the galaxy the other side of my tests. Behold, the prerequisites.
Cam winced, along with billions upon billions of other intelligences, preparing themselves for the worst. But nothing happened.
Prerequisite the 1st, the milkman declared. It is the creation of art and beauty. Only the wicked and the corrupt see not the beauty that surrounds them. Only the wicked and the corrupt live without art in their souls.
As the entity delivered its mental sermon, several species were casually annihilated from the waiting room of the infinite. Some rather gray and blobby peoples blew away into dust, and more than one vast planetary monolith, blinking with all the lights of computer servers, crumbled to powdered oblivion.
Behold the works of the Milky Way, the fruit of those peoples who adhere to my prerequisite.
A trillion objects swirled from every corner of the multidimensional metaplane. Cam watched alien sculptures collect in the sky overhead. It was impossible to tell which were abstract and which were faithful representations of the artist's species. Paintings, novels, swirling musical compositions, and other forms of art too difficult for the human sand miner to contemplate joined the stunning kaleidoscope.
Wow,
Young whispered in breathy wonder.
Behold the real.
Somehow, the milkman forced a focus on a distant bluish-white planet and its people.
Adherence to the prerequisite. They kindle art and beauty in every breath.
Obediently, Cam located the real. Smooth-skinned, dolphin-nosed people, most of whom wore richly woven robes in various shades of red and brown. On the plane that intersected their world, groups of real lined themselves up into stacked V formations, and, like a great chorus, began to exhale in unison. A bright beam of shining bubbles poured from the bills and beaks of every one of the real singers. To the clustered humans, the patterns and refracted colors were wondrous to behold. However, once the bubbles began popping, a haunting music rose up and swelled. Each bubble popped into a new, golden musical note, adding itself to the symphony. The old human was still weeping, but likely for different reasons than before, Cam figured, noting the expression of rapture on his wrinkled face.
And the humans,
the milkman said suddenly,
who cannot live without beauty and wonder. Even the humblest of them is a greater maestro than any of the artless beaux.
A lush, grassy planet suddenly caught fire. The tiny, furry inhabitants, the beaux, apparently, found themselves and their pastoral peacefulness erased from existence with extreme prejudice. The milkman continued without pausing.
Each is an artisan. Behold how the humans draw sustenance from the very art they create.
Cam's thermos, filled with tepid soup and utterly forgotten about in all the excitement, detached itself from their pack and began floating up towards the currents of swirling galactic art. Indeed, the lunch pails of every human who had been apocalypsed on the job ascended and joined the flying river, spilling their contents into the aerial gallery. The milkman drew everyone's focus towards the sea of swirling lunches. Burritos, sandwiches, pies, pasties, artistically arranged bentos, and spicy scented tiffins in all their glory paraded before the galaxy.
that's art?
Young asked skeptically, looking at a slice of Vegemite on toast that kept company with a golden alien tapestry.
I don't know.
Cam felt a strange urge to blush. This really feels like a teacher's pet moment. I mean, it's embarrassing. They turned to Young. Right?
I don't know.
The sand miner repeated. Teacher's pet isn't so bad when the teacher can melt a planet.
Behold the Kokiri. They too live on the word of beauty.
A race of cybernetic bird things took the spotlight, their alien customs translated and amplified by the milkman and the impossibility of the space. Like humans, the Kokori seemed to artfully arrange their food, threading patterns of colored berries onto long edible vines, making words and stories from their meals. As the humans observed their rival overachievers, any jealousy they felt was quickly subsumed by the utter transcendence of the Kokori art form.
They cannot exist without beauty and wonder in imagination, and yet they are wicked, and yet they have sinned.
I didn't see that one coming.
Young quipped.
Just as Statute the First denies an exit from the blessed galaxy, Statute the Sixth declares the obvious. It is forbidden to escape into a machine.
The bird-like Kokori began beating their wings in a panic. They abandoned their beautiful story strings.
Mercy! Mercy!
they shrieked, iridescent plumage flying in their useless attempts to escape.
Statute the 6th. To upload yourself is to sin. As a mind migrates itself to machine, it fails my unspoken test. And your people, all your people, are forfeit.
The doomed Kokori disappeared, along with dozens of the most technical and innovative species the galaxy has ever witnessed. A smell like burning electrical cables hung on the edge of sensing.
Cam, this is amazing, man.
Young tittered.
Another easy A, and I didn't even study.
Cam felt too sick to answer, but Young's little admirer laughed again, taking a step closer to him.
You got that right,
she said, blushing.
How many of these things are left to go, do you think?
Search me, love. Young smiled. I can't keep count.
I really like your voice.
Behold!
The milkman chimed in helpfully.
Yet one in 1,200 worlds remains to be tested.
Cam looked around, noting that the infinite space seemed emptier than ever.
What a waste,
they said under their breath, too quietly for anyone to hear.
Statute the 7th.
The milkman's voice boomed inside Cam's mind, declaring a new test that the overwhelmed sand miner couldn't even begin to comprehend.
We confess,
wailed one representative of an enormous mineral race, annihilated before the milkman had even finished speaking. The only words Cam understood were sinner, wicked, and forbidden. In fact, due to humans' limited lung capacity and inability to communicate via infrared, humanity couldn't have violated the 7th statute, even if they wanted to. The 8th statute involved some type of forbidden math that neither the miners nor their new friends had ever heard of.
I apologize for nothing,
an alien world cried out in one voice as it perished.
No! No! No!
Something else screamed, burning up into nothingness. Based on the volume of the shrieking and the amount of smoke, Cam calculated a large chunk of the remaining galaxy have sinned in this very specific way.
Nerds.
Young chuckled grimly, his arm around his new admirer. She didn't laugh, but she nestled closer.
I am the one you call the milkman. I am the one who tests.
The powerful voice attested proudly.
Few remain who have passed the tests. Few remain who have not failed the statutes.
No kidding, Cam said. Aside from a few of what they'd call teacher's pets, the galaxy had grown disturbingly empty.
All remaining people adhere to the first prerequisite. But I am not finished. My standards are high, and my wrath shall not be denied.
As the milkman thundered, the scream of bubble music emitted by the chorus of real singers took on a darker, minor key.
Prerequisite the 2nd is also obvious. Among the great virtues is joyous untethering.
Again, Cam had trouble understanding the whims of a being so strange.
Oi, milkman,
Young called out, taking the direct approach.
What does that mean?
Knock, knock,
the milkman responded. Young cocked his head.
Who's there?
Behold, the instinct lives inside of you, in the souls of all the virtuous. You call it laughter, humor, a joyous untethering. Behold the Calais, a people whose every word is a laugh, whose every sentence is a layered joke, and whose actions in life are naught but absurdist skits.
Cam dutifully looked at the world of Calais and its people, who appeared to the human as figures not unlike giant, oblong eggs. They rolled around in tiny wheeled carts, bobbing and bumping in a way that Cam had to admit was kind of funny.
I bet they crack each other up,
Young's companion joked, diffidently. Young smiled and gave her a squeeze. None of the group of humans had noticed the doomed reel. Dolphin beaks, beautiful bubbles and all, hissing and dying in a corner of the plane of the infinite, Apparently, they'd been too busy singing to make anyone laugh. Some delicate Nautilus people crumbled, as did a world of powerful gaseous empaths.
To omit a prerequisite is to sin,
the milkman said spitefully, stamping out those who'd failed the test. I'm trying to get this straight, Cam said, massaging their temples. You've got to laugh. You've got to do some kind of sandwich art. No time travel, the short woman chimed in. And no uploading yourself to the cloud, Young continued. No leaving the galaxy, don't enslave worlds, don't destroy planets. There was also that math thing. Yeah, Cam began to speak, but the milkman's thundering tones interrupted.
Prerequisite the third,
It boomed.
It is the gray shadow of Statute the First. Prerequisite the third states that the righteous peoples must be open peoples, eager to reach out, eager to connect.
Young must have been as confused as the other humans because he raised a hand and began to ask for clarification.
I will demonstrate,
the milkman said, anticipating the question.
To open your hearts and connect with other minds is mandatory. Wicked is the hermit. Corrupted is the recluse.
From the edge of the galaxy, a small, metal-rich world was drawn to the center of the metaplane. The planet's shining skinned people and steel buildings flared and burned, punished for their isolation.
Woe be to you, those who have believed themselves evolved, believed themselves righteous. Who be you who wall yourselves off and hide in your insular ignorance? We're guilty too,
the man with the braided hair cried out again, finding another opportunity for confession.
We never left your galaxy, true, but we didn't connect with anyone. We're not open or curious. We are wicked. Silence!
The milkman thundered. An instant later, a series of images forced themselves upon all present. Glimpses of Earth's setup facilities, dish arrays, and the Voyager spacecraft smeared across their minds. The old human did not appear mollified. Young chuckled. Would you look at the self-hating clown? Hey, over there, the egg people, Young's companion pointed. The sand miners followed with their eyes. A world away, the silly, bouncing Calais people were being smitten. As they cracked open, gushes of red, foul-smelling liquid leaked out. The wheeled carts came off their tracks, and the world of the Calais collapsed into dusty memory. They're hermits, too, Cam said, sensing it was their turn to make a joke. I guess they should have, come out of their shells a bit more.
Prerequisite the fourth.
Milkman! Young yelled out, interrupting the omnipresent entity. He gave a gesture that took in the entire multidimensional plane. It was easy to see. Earth and its people were all that remained of the once crowded galaxy.
Indeed, the milkman responded. Humanity stands alone. Prerequisite the fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, and the eighth need not be stated. You have passed.
A billion relieved sighs, cheers, and whoops briefly rose into a cacophony. Couldn't be easier, Young grinned.
And yet there still remains one test. The last question.
As one, humanity deflated.
You righteous must make the choice. Do you wish to go on? On to what?
Cam and the others screamed at the milkman.
To what is next?
Oi, Milky! What does that mean?
The question has been spoken. I am the one who tests!
It shrieked in their minds.
It can all end here if you choose. But I ask again, do you, as a people, wish to go on?
Yes! Yes!
Yes! Yes!
The chorus of humanity, uncertain at first, but growing in volume, cried out, answering the question. Cam looked around the infinite space that still somehow contained only one world. The Milky Way galaxy had become blank, a smooth, white gravestone. Yes, they said at last, considering the alternative. That's easy.